All right. So I'm going to talk about engaging technologists as a behaviorist, and Santosh is going to talk about engaging people that aren't engineers. So the challenge of working across disciplines is that everybody's got a bit of a different agenda and different knowledge, right? So, oh my God, transdisciplinary mobile health systems, dynamic research, wow, that's me, you know. And then there's promotion and first authorship in JAMA or something like that that you need if you're working in the medical professions, which is not at all useful for engineers. Has the accelerometer in that cell phone or that EMA questionnaire been validated? Then we're in a new field, and different people have different expectations. So we don't have a lot of validated measures in ecological momentary assessment. All of this new machine learning stuff that you guys have been talking about today is new machine learning stuff that isn't validated. How do we move that forward? And what happens with the reviewers of your grants, and how do they feel about that? All stuff to think about. Is it the most up-to-date technology? So as you heard today, you know, when Vivek says, but there is one of those, and Stephen said, you know, that exists too. What's off the shelf? What do we have to develop ourselves? And does it always have to be the most up-to-date? What do you actually really need if you're going into a developing country, for instance? Lots of different tensions. And then we have, for instance, many researchers who, for instance, are primarily at NSF, National Science Foundation, do this basic science proof of concept. Once they are done with the proof of concept, they are done. So often in engineering, this is what they get rewarded for. Proof of concept, they're done. But as a behaviorist, I need them to stick with me as I go out into the field. It has to be something that I can take out and use. So those two things, working with real people, taking something out into the field, this sort of maintenance of technology and algorithms once they've been developed, is not necessarily, doesn't get engineers promotion often, doesn't get computer scientists further in their lives. It can be a real tension between what my field needs and what your field needs, right? This is all stuff that you guys have to talk about as you're working together, make some agreements ahead of time. Another thing that I learned that was very interesting to me is engineers and computer scientists come in many flavors. There's signal processing, there's electrical engineering, computer science, this is just to name a few, and they all do different stuff. Who knew? You might need a harem, right? I certainly did, but that's another story. Understand. Well, Sri was part of my harem. There was like a million engineers to do what I thought was simple. The thing is, understanding my own needs or your needs might not even be in your job description. You don't know often in these transdisciplinary projects what you actually need. I was just talking to a user-centered designer saying, you know, she's saying, I've moved to a new university. People aren't accessing me because they don't know what I do or that they need me. So figuring this out and talking to other disciplines is really a thing that you got to do. Engineers might also not be, and computer scientists might also not be the only tech people that you need. Human-computer interaction people, game design people, user-centered design, and creatives. Don't forget to budget for music, visual arts, story, the stuff that you're going to need when you're using mobile technologies that people look at and have to remain compelling. It's good to map all of this out up front at the budgeting phase. Talk to the experts, talk to people, you know, you can access the faculty anytime now. You've been adopted, you're part of the family. So to find out what your needs are as you develop a project. Choosing technologies. So what you really want versus what's out there. What's on the shelf that we can really use? A lot of the stuff on the shelf is black box, not open source. It's not really Bluetooth, it won't give you your data back. But some of it's very slick and very usable. So it depends on what you need. Don't do the maximum model. Do what you need. See what's out there and build on that and build new things only when you really need it, right? And when you build it, may I encourage you to make it open source. So when I've one of the interesting things working with computer scientists and engineers for me as a behaviorist is I have an idea of what I want, and they say, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem. And that turns out not to be exactly true, or they can do the proof of concept, but they can't really get it out in the field for me. So you really need to be clear up front, even though you don't know. So what I've learned to do as I'm building a new team is we present to one another. Every meeting, we have presentations on what I do in my world. And it's a really wonderful way to learn about each other's work. Another thing is often the engineers and computer scientists that I've worked with have ins at companies that they used to work with. And so we end up getting technology that might not be exactly fit for our usage and that my population can't use, but they want to use it because they know those people and they can get a deal. So you really need to understand what your population is going to need. Ground truthing and qualitative iterations, we've talked about that. You need those small, iterative, fast collection rounds, first in lab and then in the wild, and make sure your target population is involved from the ground up. Make sure they'll wear it, use it, focus group, idea building groups, every step of the way. Mobile health is a taking turns scenario. You're not always going to be comfortable with that. You need to agree, understand up front. Stay in touch. Mutual involvement is important every step of the way. So for many projects, engineers and creatives' work is upfront, right? Behaviorists like me we play an advisory role in a kind of an odd way. We might run the focus groups, or even the computer design, or the design people might run those. You might do it together. But I can't build stuff and I can't draw stuff. My artwork is horrific. So we play an important role, but it's advisory in the beginning, and this is not at all academically rewarding. You can't write it up usually, or often it's hard to write up for the journals that are important to you. Be patient, think creatively, and stay in there. When you get into the field and the other way around, when the behaviors are taking the lead, and when you're developing that last part of the intervention where the messaging and everything, engineers and creatives might play more of a maintenance role. This is not academically rewarding for them. They've already got their fancy stuff built and they've already written about it. Think about this up front. When do you need a programmer? When do you need to hand this off and not be just depending on your academic colleagues who are not going to find this very glorious? This scenario looks different if you engage a company. Understand those trade-offs. My experience engaging companies is that they might work faster, but they're not an academic partner and they don't think along with you in the same way. So there's trade-offs in that. What isn't measured isn't modeled. So decide up front what you need to measure, how to tag it in your data. Different disciplines also need different measures, and different disciplines interpret the same data quite differently. So get in there and roll up your sleeves together and look at the data together across disciplines. So it's behavioral archaeology. What is all this new data telling us about the people that we're working with? Remember, there's limited measurement real estate. Repurpose the measures that you're taking. Share that real estate. You can't measure everything all the time. The burden on your participants is too big. And keep communicating. Make team presentations a regular fun event. Explain what you're doing and why you need to do it in terms that your colleagues can understand. And call me all the time. Can you repeat the part of the stuff where you said all about the things? Okay. That's what I have to say. Santosh, you're up. Thank you.